Genocide is hard to define because, as Strauss says, different commentators have different crimes and different events in mind when they refer to perpetrators of genocide. But the definition of genocide itself is defined as the murder of large quantities of people based on certain characteristics. Genocide as a process has been around for centuries, however it is not carried as a phrase or named specifically as genocide until the 20th century. The genocide in Rwanda was the mass slaughter of the Tutsi people by the Hutu. Kuperman says before and during the colonial period, Rwanda was dominated politically by the Tutsi, a social group comprising 17% of the population, despite the fact that the majority were Hutu. The two factions shared a language, religion, and admired amongst both factions. This did not stop the struggle for political power, costing the lives of an estimated 800,000 Rwandans in the 100 Days of War in 1994, killing more than 20% of Rwanda's total population. Strauss theorizes that the initial commentary in the Rwandan genocide claimed violence was an outbreak of long-standing enmity between the Hutu and Tutsi ethnic groups. Later evidence shows a state-driven annihilation of a specific ethnic group. Hitchens suggested that an emphasis on external factors places responsibility for genocide elsewhere. Hitchens' idea that there were external factors has merit, as the church played a large part in the genocide in terms of how many churches housed those fleeing persecution. Colonial rule in Rwanda had led to the Catholic Church building an alliance with the dominant classes. They easily ignored important divisions of class, religion, lineage, clan, and political faction. There are so many stories of Catholic priests colluding with the militia to murder those who had sought out shelter in somewhere they thought was safe. Their church. In the end, they had been complicit with the murder of thousands of people. The Guardian writer McGreal singles out a few who had been helped by the church. For example, Father Athanase Saromba, who ordered the bulldozing of his church with 2,000 Tutsi inside. This priest in particular was aided by the Catholic Church, who have given him a chance to change his name and helped him become a parish priest in Florence. The Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide was a legal mechanism created by the United Nations. This convention has created an obligation to stop genocide from happening if possible. There are many problems with these legal definitions, as is stated by Kim. The Genocide Convention applies only to actions undertaken on a mass scale, and not to individual acts. There is still the question on why and when genocide is not genocide, and when that is. We can use theory to try to understand how genocide happened, why it's still happening. Classical theories are based on the feelings of otherness, a lack of understanding, and in the midst of economic hardship. Contemporary genocide theories are based on ideology, on state interest, and political development. Genocidal theory in some way is based on racism, as the genocide was based on the race of the Tutsi. Dillon suggests that there is a tension that exists between collective shared biological race and racial history, and the shared political goal of racial equality. This wasn't seen from the Hutu during the genocide. Genocide theories recognize the 8 stages. The stage of genocide starts with classification. In terms of Rwandan genocide, classification began under the Belgian rule. They had introduced identity cards which would identify them as Tutsi and could have potentially put them in danger. Another classification was that they had started to use race to distinguish who was indigenous, but then use ethnicity, as Mamdani said, to separate different groups among the indigenous. The next stage is symbolization. It is not necessarily problematic, but using symbols or even code words to identify those different than acceptable can be problematic. This is then followed by the dehumanization process, in which people deny certain groups humanity. Tutsis were named cockroaches. Treating the Tutsi differently was pushed very much through propaganda, not dehumanizing in an open way, but a hidden implication of what they meant and felt towards these people. Yuvin, 1988, suggests that the Tutsi were socially dead. Their murder acceptable because it was happening so regularly it was almost common. The next stage, organization. Organization usually creates factions in which nothing seems to be threatening. This leads to polarization, which is organization behind the scenes. Polarization leads to preparation in which there is no way of going back. After this point, genocide will happen. In terms of Rwanda, there were signs that something wasn't right. Machetes had been ordered in increasing numbers, but were yet not needed for agriculture. Preparation then leads to extermination. This is genocide. Finally is denial, the aftermath of genocide. In the period before and during the genocide, little attention was paid to Rwanda. Denial is not based on the fact that someone has died, but based on victimization. Denial through underreporting and a denial of figures. The news media, both domestic and international, played a crucial role in the 1994 Rwandan genocide. Thompson believed the local media, especially extremist radio station RTLM, were part of this genocide. They had used the media as a weapon. The legalities of genocide are ambiguous and easily contested, as there is little law that tells us if there has been a certain number of deaths for a genocide and not a massacre. The international community has no legal obligation to impose security and peace. This includes negotiation, third-party assembly to offer something to stop war, but these solutions are created by the Security Council. However, it is frowned upon to go against a country's sovereignty. Chapter 7 suggests it's legal to go against a country's rule and pass power to the Security Council because genocide is such a heinous violation of human rights. Cohen correctly argues that the term bystander has acquired the pejorative meaning of passivity and indifference. This definition has applied to those non-rescuers who did nothing to help people. There is an element of responsibility. The genocide in Rwanda was horrific and could have been prevented. There is no doubt the genocide is against human rights, specifically the right to life. There has been little doubt casted on the prevention and punishment of genocide.